So let's look at what is ChatGPT. So ChatGPT is an advanced language model that was trained or is trained using different resources. So the idea is that it understands as humans, and so we also understand it in a sense so that it gives us response in natural languages. Now let's look at this diagram so we can really understand what we mean by models and understand really the inner workings of ChatGPT. So if you think of ChatGPT as a huge circle, as you see here, we have ChatGPT. So what happened is that ChatGPT is actually built this engine called artificial intelligence, AI, and this language model that we talked about. So the language model, again, understands the human language, understands natural language. That's why we're able, in this case, to communicate with it. Now, the question always comes is, well, how does that interaction works? How does then ChatGPT knows to answer those questions? Because it needs to know the answers to the questions that we are prompting. Well, the process is very simple. These language models are actually trained on different data sources. So we can have, in this case, we can have websites, text resources, books, articles, and so forth. The model is always being trained, has been trained on all of these different resources out there. One thing to remember is that ChatGPT is not a web browser, but it is a trained model, has been trained to aggregate all of this information in all these different formats. So that way we then can interact with this engine that is ChatGPT. So at the end of the day, what will happen is as follows. As you see here, we have this whole architecture of what is ChatGPT, and the language model is very well trained using the websites, text sources, and many other resources out there to really understand the world per se. And so now what we do as people, we are able to ask questions to ChatGPT like, what is 5 times 9,875? And so ChatGPT, because it has that knowledge, remember it was trained very well, it's able to output or give us the answer something like this. 5 multiplied by 9,875 equals 49,375. So that is essentially what ChatGPT is. So ChatGPT is essentially a tool that we can use that leverages AI, this huge machinery, this huge engine out there, with, in this case, language models that is really well trained, that knows more about the world than you and I can possibly know. Now wait, there is more actually, because I've been focusing on saying that ChatGPT understands a natural language. Not only natural languages, ChatGPT also understands other data sets of information, such as programming languages. ChatGPT has also been trained to understand the programming languages such as JavaScript, Java, HTML. ChatGPT has also been trained to understand and be able to answer questions about programming in general. So not only natural languages, but also programming languages, which makes this whole thing even more exciting, because now we don't only have one way of connecting, of getting more knowledge about certain topics connected to natural languages, but also we can start prompting or asking questions about programming languages and go from there. All right, so it's really exciting. It's an amazing tool, and this is exactly what we're gonna go really deep in this course to really grasp how ChatGPT works and leverage ChatGPT, this amazing tool, to make us better at what we do. All right, so I'll see you in the next video.